Just imagine one ordinary morning your son calls and says, "Mom, my wife, the kids, and her mother are moving in. It's final, no discussion." You barely have time to react before. They're all at your doorstep, but when they arrive, something in front of the house leaves everyone frozen in. Shock. What did they see? Why did everyone stop in their tracks? Trust me, you won't see this twist coming. Don't even think about skipping. Watch till the end or you'll miss the moment that changed everything. It was a Tuesday, not a special Tuesday, mind you, just one of those ordinary run-of-the-mill days where the most exciting thing on my calendar was a new episode of my favorite baking show, and maybe if I was feeling wild, a trip to the grocery store for the good coffee. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet you learn to appreciate after raising kids, working, and juggling life for decades. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee, slippers on, robe tied, and the cross word puzzle open on the kitchen table. The sun was peeking through the curtains, and for a moment I thought, this is it. This is what peace feels like. And then the phone rang. Now I don't know about you, but when the phone rings before 10 a.m., it's either a telemarketer or something's up. I glanced at the caller ID and saw it was David, my son, my firstborn, the one who used to call me mommy and now at 38 only calls when he needs something or wants to share a funny story about the kids. I answered, expecting a quick chat about the grandkids' latest antics or maybe a request for my lasagna recipe again. But David's voice was different. This time, all business, no small talk. Mom, my wife, the kids, and her mother are moving in. It's final. No discussion. I nearly choked on my coffee. I had to set the mug down before I spilled it all over my crossword. No discussion. I wanted to say, excuse me, since when did you become the king of the castle? I mean, I love my son, but let's be honest, he's not exactly the one running the ship. I bit my tongue, though, and just sat there, heart pounding, mind racing. 4 extra people in my house, and one of them is my daughter-in-law's mother, Linda, who once told me my living room was quaint. Still not sure if that was a compliment or a polite way of saying outdated. I tried to picture it. Toys everywhere, the sound of cartoons at 6 a.m., and my kitchen, my sanctuary invaded by little hands and sticky fingers. I could already hear the clatter of tiny feet on the hardwood floors, the endless questions, the bickering over who gets the last cookie, and Linda, with her suggestions about how to organize my pantry or which brand of dish soap is truly superior. I'll admit, a little fear crept in. Would I ever have a moment's peace again, or would I be hiding in the pantry with a bag of chips whispering serenity now? David kept talking, explaining something about their house needing repairs, the contractor running behind, and how it was just for a few months. But you and I both know how that goes. A few months can turn into a year faster than you can. Say home renovation. I tried to listen, but my mind was already spinning. Where? Would everyone sleep? Would I have to give up my sewing room? What about my book club nights? And most importantly, would I ever get to watch my shows in peace again? I glanced around my kitchen, suddenly seeing it through new eyes. The breakfast nook where I enjoyed my quiet mornings would soon be filled with cereal bowls and spilled milk. The living room, my cozy retreat, would become a battleground for remote control supremacy. And the bathroom. Oh, don't get me started on the bathroom. Sharing with 4 more people, 2 of them under the age of 10, I shuddered at the thought. But then as I sat there, a wave of guilt washed over me. Was I being selfish? After all, family is family. I remember the times my own mother took us in when things got tough, never once complaining about the noise or the mess. Maybe this was my turn to pay it forward. Still, I couldn't help but feel a little panicked. I'd worked hard for this piece, this little slice of quiet. Was it so wrong to want to keep it? I tried to muster up some enthusiasm for David's sake. Of course, honey, I said, my voice a little too high-pitched to sound convincing. We'll make it work. He sounded relieved, and I could almost hear the tension leave his shoulders through the phone. Thanks, Mom, I knew you'd understand. We'll be there this weekend. This weekend. That gave me exactly 4 days to prepare for the invasion. I hung up the phone and sat in silence, the weight of what was, coming settling over me like a heavy blanket. I looked at my crossword, suddenly uninterested in the clue for 17, a cross. Instead, I started making a mental list. Clean out the guest room, stock up on snacks, hide the good, towels, and maybe, just maybe, find a lock for the bathroom door. As I sipped the last of my now cold coffee, I couldn't help but laugh. Life has a funny way of throwing you curveballs just when you think you've got it all figured out. I wasn't sure if I was ready for this next chapter, but ready or not, it was coming. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, it would turn out to be the adventure I never knew I needed. But first, I was going to need a lot more coffee. After David's call, I sat at the kitchen table for a good 10 minutes, just staring at the wall, letting the news settle in. My mind was racing with 1,000 questions. Where would everyone sleep? What would we eat? Would I ever get a moment's peace again? But after the initial shock wore off, I did what any sensible woman would do when faced with impending chaos. I cleaned, and I don't mean a quick tidy up, I mean a full-blown top to bottom. If it doesn't sparkle, it's not staying kind of cleaning. There's something about scrubbing baseboards and organizing closets that makes you feel like you're taking back a little control, even if the rest of your life is about to be turned upside down. I started in the guest room, which, if I'm being honest, had become more of a storage unit than a welcoming retreat. I found things in there I hadn't seen in years: old photo albums, a box of Christmas decorations I thought I'd lost, and for some reason, 3 umbrellas. Why do I have 3 umbrellas? I don't even like the rain. I stripped the bed, fluffed the pillows, and put on the good sheets, the ones with the little blue flowers that always make me smile. I even dug out the extra blankets just in case someone got cold. As I worked, I found myself humming the rhythm of cleaning, soothing my nerves. Next, I tackled the bathroom. I scrubbed every surface until it gleamed, lined up fresh towels, and set out those little guest soaps shaped like seashells that I usually save for special occasions. Well, if this wasn't a special occasion, I didn't know what was. I even put a new roll of toilet paper on the holder and made sure there were extra rolls under the sink. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that you can never have too much toilet paper when kids are involved. The kitchen was next, my sanctuary. I wiped down the counters, organized the pantry, and made a mental note to hide my favorite snacks on the top shelf behind the flour. I could already picture little hands reaching for cookies and crackers, and I wanted to make sure I had at least one secret stash for those moments when I needed a break. I even cleaned out the fridge, tossing anything questionable and making room for the inevitable influx of juice boxes, yogurt tubes, and whatever it is Linda insists on eating for breakfast. Last time she visited, she brought her own special granola. I still have no idea what was in it. By the time I finished, the house looked better than it had in years. I stood in the hallway, hands on my hips, surveying my work. The baseboards were spotless. The linen closet was organized by color and size, and I'd even dusted the top of the fridge, a place I'm pretty sure no one but me will ever see. Why did I do it? Maybe I thought if the house sparkled, I'd feel more in control. Or maybe I just needed something to focus on, besides the impending invasion. As I folded towels and lined up the guest soaps, something unexpected started to happen. Amid the anxiety and the endless to-do list, a little bubble of excitement began to rise. Maybe this was a chance to make new memories. Maybe I'd finally have someone to watch those old black and white movies with, the ones David always groans about but secretly enjoys. Maybe the house, which had felt a little too quiet lately, would come alive again, with laughter and noise and the pitter-patter of little feet. Of course, there was also the very real possibility that I'd lose my mind. 4 extra people, 2 of them children, and 1 of them Linda, who has opinions about everything from how to load the dishwasher to the proper way to fold a fitted sheet. Is there a proper way? If so, I've never figured it out. But either way, it was happening. Ready or not, my peaceful little world was about to get a whole lot busier. I even caught myself laughing as I lined up the shampoo bottles in the shower. What's next? I thought. A pet iguana. Don't get any ideas, David. I could just picture it. Me chasing a lizard around the living room while the kids cheered. And Linda offered advice on reptile care. Stranger things have happened in this family. As the day went on, I found myself making lists, grocery lists, chore charts, even a tentative meal plan. For the first week, I called my friend, Susan, to vent, and she just laughed. You'll survive, she said, and if you don't, you can always come hide out at my place. I appreciated the offer, but deep down I knew I'd be okay. I've weathered bigger storms than this. Besides, there was a part of me that was looking forward to the chaos, the mess, the noise. Life had gotten a little too quiet lately, and maybe this was exactly what I needed to shake things up. That night, as I climbed into bed exhausted, but oddly content, I thought about all the changes coming my way. I knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be moments of frustration, of course, arguments over the TV, spilled milk, and the inevitable clash of personalities. But there would also be moments of joy, family dinners, bedtime stories, and the simple pleasure of having the people I love under one roof. I turned off the light, pulled the covers up to my chin, and whispered a little prayer for patience and maybe a touch of wisdom, because ready or not, my family was coming home, and I was determined to make the best of it. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, I'd discover that a little chaos was exactly what my heart needed. The morning of the big day, I woke up, before the sun, nerves fluttering in my stomach like a flock of butterflies. I barely slept the night before, tossing and turning, running through mental checklists and last-minute worries. Was there enough milk in the fridge? Did I remember to put fresh batteries in the TV remote? Would Linda, my daughter-in-law's mother, find something to critique before she even set her purse down? I tried to calm myself with a cup of coffee, but my hands were shaking so much I nearly sloshed it onto my freshly scrubbed kitchen floor. I kept glancing at the clock, counting down the minutes until my quiet, orderly house would be filled with the sounds of family, laughter, chatter, and, inevitably, a little chaos. By the time David's car finally pulled into the driveway, I was standing at the window, heart thumping so loudly I was sure the neighbors could hear it. I watched as the car doors flew open, and my grandkids tumbled out, all energy and excitement, their little faces beaming. As they spotted me in the window, my daughter-in-law Sarah climbed out next, waving with one hand while balancing a precarious stack of coloring books and juice boxes in the other. And then, last but certainly not least, there she was, Linda, the woman who once told me my gravy was interesting and who had a knack for making even the simplest compliments sound like a backhanded critique. She stepped out of the car with the air of a queen surveying her new kingdom, her lips pursed and her eyes scanning the house. But as they started up the walkway, something unexpected happened. They all stopped, mouths open, staring at my front yard. For a split second, I panicked, wondering if I'd forgotten to pick up the morning paper or if the recycling bin had blown over again. And then I remembered I'd asked my neighbor's teenage son, Tyler, to help with some light landscaping earlier in the week. I'd pictured a few mums by the porch, maybe a pumpkin or two for a touch of autumn. Apparently, Tyler had taken my request as an invitation to create a full-blown fall festival. My front yard had been transformed into an autumn wonderland. There were pumpkins of every size and color, hay bales stacked artfully by the walkway, and not one, but 3 scarecrows grinning from the flower beds. Cornstalks flanked the porch, and a garland of orange and gold leaves wound its way around the railing, but the pièce de résistance was the hand-painted sign hanging from the mailbox. Welcome to Grandma's house of fun. The kids squalled with delight, racing up the path to inspect every pumpkin and hay bale. Sarah laughed, shaking her head in disbelief, and even Linda, stoic, unflappable Linda, cracked a genuine smile. She turned to me as I opened the door, her eyes twinkling. "Well, I must say you certainly know how to make an entrance," she said. And for the first time I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd survive this arrangement after all. David just shook, his head grinning as he hauled suitcases out of the trunk. "Mom, you never do anything halfway, do you?" he said, and I couldn't help but laugh. "You know me," I replied. "Go big or go home, and since you're all moving in, I guess I had to go big." The next hour was a blur of hugs, laughter, and controlled chaos of moving in. The kids darted from room to room claiming their beds and discovering the stash of board games I'd set out in the living room. Sarah and I unloaded groceries and tried to find space in the fridge for everyone's favorites. Linda, to my surprise, offered to help unpack and even complimented my choice of guest towels. I nearly fainted on the spot. David set up the kids' tablets and made a beeline for the coffee pot, muttering something about needing caffeine to survive the day. As the afternoon wore on, the house began to fill with the sounds and smells of family. The kids. Laughter echoed down the hallway, mingling with the scent of apple cider, simmering on the stove. Sarah put on some music and soon we were all singing along to old favorites, the kind that make you feel like everything is going to be okay, no matter how crazy life gets. Even Linda joined in, her voice surprisingly strong as she belted out the chorus to Sweet Caroline. There were a few hiccups, of course. The kids argued over who got the top bunk, and Linda had a few suggestions about where to put the silverware. But as I watched my family settle in, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. My house, once so quiet and orderly, was alive with energy and love. Sure, it was a little overwhelming, and I knew there would be moments when I'd long for a few minutes of peace and quiet. But as I looked around at the smiling faces, I realized that this beautiful, messy, noisy chaos was exactly what I'd been missing. That night, after everyone was tucked in and the house had finally quieted down, I stood at the window, looking out at the twinkling lights strung across the porch and the pumpkins glowing in the moonlight. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of contentment I hadn't felt in a long time. My family was here under one roof, and for the first time in a while my heart felt full. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I also knew we'd face them together, and as I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I couldn't help but smile, already looking forward to the adventures tomorrow would bring. That first night, we all squeezed around the dinner table, elbows bumping, plates overlapping, and the air thick with the scent of roasted chicken and mashed potatoes. I'd pulled out the good tablecloth, the one with the tiny, embroidered daisies, and even though I knew it was probably a mistake with 2 kids under 10, I wanted to mark the occasion. The table was set for 7, and for the first time in years, every chair was filled. There was laughter, real belly laughter, mixed with the clatter of silverware and the occasional shriek as the kids tried to outdo each other with stories from school. Sarah, my daughter-in-law, was trying to keep the peace, passing the roles and reminding the kids to use their inside voices, while David recounted a story from work that had everyone in stitches. Even Linda, who usually sat a little stiffly at family gatherings, seemed to relax, her eyes crinkling at the corners as she sipped her tea and offered up a surprisingly witty comment about the state of my gravy, which for the record she called delightfully robust. I'll take it. Of course it wasn't all picture perfect. At one point my grandson reached for the butter. His sleeve caught the edge of his glass, and milk went everywhere, across the table, onto the floor, and naturally right into my lap. For a split second the room went silent, everyone waiting to see how I'd react. But then I just started laughing, and soon everyone joined in. We mopped up the mess with napkins, and I made a mental note to invest in a few more stain removers. It was chaos, but it was our chaos, and as I looked around the table I realized my house was full of noise, full of love, full of life. After dinner, the kids helped clear the table with a little coaxing and a promise of dessert, and I found myself standing at the sink, hands in soapy water, watching the swirl of activity around me. Sarah and David were sorting through boxes in the hallway, trying to find the kids' pajamas. Linda was in the living room reading a story to my granddaughter, her voice surprisingly gentle. The kids' laughter drifted in from the next room, and I felt a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the dishwater. Sure, there were moments I wanted to lock myself in the bathroom with a good book and a bar of chocolate just for a little peace and quiet. But there were also moments like this one that I wouldn't trade for anything. Later that evening, after the kids were in their pajamas and the grown-ups had settled in, with cups of tea, my granddaughter climbed into my lap, her hair still damp from her bath, and whispered, "I love living with you, Grandma." My heart melted right there. All the stress, the worry, the endless cleaning and organizing, it was all worth it for that one simple sentence. I hugged her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, and promised myself to remember this moment the next time I found myself tripping over a toy or searching for a missing sock. As the days turned into weeks, we all started to settle into a new rhythm. Mornings were a flurry of activity, breakfast to make, lunches to pack, shoes to find. Why is there always one missing? And the inevitable scramble to get everyone out the door on time. The house was rarely quiet, and my once pristine living room now sported a permanent fort made of couch cushions and blankets. But there was a certain joy in the mess, a sense of purpose in the busyness. I found myself looking forward to the sound of little feet running down the hallway, the impromptu dance parties in the kitchen, and the nightly ritual of bedtime stories. Of course, there were challenges. Sharing a bathroom with 4 extra people required a level of patience I didn't know I possessed. Linda and I had a few discussions about the best way to load the dishwasher. For the record, there is a right way, and it's mine. And there were days when I longed for just 5 minutes of uninterrupted silence, but there were also unexpected blessings, like the way Sarah and I bonded over late-night cups of tea, sharing stories and laughter long after everyone else had gone to bed, or the way David, who'd always been a little reserved, started opening up, telling me about his worries and dreams as we folded laundry together. The kids brought a new energy to the house, reminding me of the days when my own children were small. We baked cookies, built snowmen in the yard, and watched old movies snuggled up on the couch. Even Linda, who I'd always seen as a bit of a rival, became a partner in crime, helping me plan family meals, sharing recipes, and even teaching me a few tricks in the garden. We weren't just surviving, we were thriving, building a new kind of family together. So if you ever get a call like mine, don't panic. You might just find that what you fear the most turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to you. Or at the very least, it'll make a great story for your next girls' night. Life has a funny way of surprising us, and sometimes the messiest moments are the ones that fill our hearts the most. As I sit here now, surrounded by the happy chaos of my family, I can honestly say I wouldn't have it any other way. If you enjoyed this little adventure, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I've got plenty more stories, some funny, some heartwarming, and all a little bit unexpected. Because let's face it, life after 50 is just getting interesting. So what would you do if your whole family moved in? Let me know in the comments below.